What's up, guys? My name is Matt Redmond, and I'm excited to share with you a very productive smallmouth bass pattern that we've used quite a bit this spring in my neck of the woods. I'm based in Northeast Ohio. I'm the owner-operator of Northeast Ohio Angling LLC. We offer some guiding, we offer some instruction, and then on top of that, I've done quite a bit of writing for a number of publications. I've worked on a handful of pieces for flyfisherman.com, just sort of sharing a lot of the very cool fishing that we have in the Great Lakes. Lake Erie southern tributaries specifically. Smallmouth bass, steelhead, pike, drum, you name it, muskie, you name it, we have it. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool area to live and operate. But the fly we're going to talk about today is a game changer style pattern, epically successful. I mean, so many people use these, so many people tie them. What's cool about these specific flies that we're going to talk about today is how they're put together. So these are Natural Shade Tapered Brushes. We use these as prop material for this specific fly. They're tapered and they were designed specifically to tie game changers. They make the trimming process non-existent unless you add extra material. They set your teardrop shape for you. I really think they kind of bring the game changer platform down and it's much more attainable for the newer or inexperienced tyer because a lot of the proportions are figured out for you by this brush. So you can tie full changers just with that brush material. We're going to add laser dub as a veil over each section because it looks cool. It adds a little bit of bulk to it. And you can really play with those colors and really make it pop. If you look at this, you've got lots of contrast built into this fly with the yellow, the light olive, the dark olive, and then the tan up front. Contrast is so key to getting flies seen, so this has it built in. It's about 5 inches long. We tie them weighted, we tie them unweighted, fish them on all different kinds of lines. We've caught a bunch of spring fish this year, lake run fish, so when those smallmouth run into the tributaries or they come shallow in the lake, we've got them in both places with these. Northern pike hit on these a bunch last fall, so just a really neat pattern and not all that difficult to tie. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're going to start off with a 12 millimeter shank, and we're going to lay down a thread base, and our tail is going to be marabou. This is Fulling Mills yellow marabou that I've got here. And I've pulled off the bottom fibers to expose that stem, get rid of some of the really webby stuff. And I'm gonna tie it in. I don't know if you can really see this. I'm gonna tie it in about halfway back on this shank. I don't need to go all the way back because we're not adding any prop material on this rear section. We don't need all that much real estate. You could probably get away with a 10 millimeter shank here just fine. But we're gonna lock that in. Cut it. We'll come in with our second one. And then just try to match the length of the first. But we do want a really full tail. That's why we're gonna use 2 feathers. Most of these sort of warm water articulated streamers with the marabou style tail are using 2 feathers in the back. You can get away with 1 if it's a really nice feather, but most of the time you're gonna want the second one just to kind of add a little bit of volume back there. And you want this fly to kick. You want a little substance in the back. So there's our tail. You can add some flash to this if you wanted. You certainly don't have to do that. I'm not gonna do that. But if that's something you wanted to do, you could. So now we're going to come in with some laser dub, not a lot of laser dub, and it's all yellow. And what we're going to do is stack it. So this has already been stacked. I'll do it again to show it. But if you just pinch it, pull it out of the packet, and then essentially grab the tips, pull, and stack it over, you end up with not all, but the vast majority of those fibers all facing the same direction, which is what we're looking for here. So once you've got that, we're going to pinch it in the middle, and then we're going to sort of spread those fibers out. I know it's kind of hard to see, but we're basically going to like almost like a blooming flower. We want those things to spread out in 360 degrees. I'm trying to find a way to show you that so that you can basically throw it right onto that shank axially and tie it in the middle. Okay, so we got a bunch coming off the front. I've got it sort of 360 degrees coned around that marabou. I'm gonna pull some thread off and then do a really light wrap once, twice, and then I'm gonna pull it tight to cinch it. I'm gonna go 5 or so wraps around, keeping some tension on this, and then I'm gonna throw a little knot in there just to hold everything in place. We really don't want this to move. Once we roll this guy back up, we're gonna go ahead and fold this dub backwards. All right, so we didn't really reverse tie it, we just sort of tied it in at the halfway point and then folded it. So now it's all sort of in that cone shape going backwards, and you can sort of see the effect we're going for with these shingled segments of rearward leaning fibers. We'll throw a knot up front, rip that thread right off. I'm gonna hit it with a little, tell you what, we'll do that after. We're gonna pull all this forward, pull all that laser dub forward, try not to get the marabou in there if you can. And I'm just gonna sort of pull it with my fingers, and you're gonna get some of it coming out. That's not a problem. I'm actually then gonna take a wire brush to it. And this wire brush was like $8 on Amazon. Lavaxon, I think it was a 3-pack, or maybe it was $9. But it's been pretty good. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this to make it short. We just want a really short little segment back here up against our marabou. So we're gonna pull it all forward, pinch it, take our scissors, and chop it. Now that it's short, we'll lay it back. Now we'll look at it and determine if we like the length. I do. I think that's as long as it needs to be. You could make it a little bit shorter if you wanted, but I think that's a pretty good back section of this fly. So we're gonna hit it with some super glue and move on. I use Fly Tire Z-Ment for just about everything anymore. It's awesome. It's super durable. It's very strong. However, it can get into the eyes of these shanks and hooks. So you want to give it a second to dry, but also if you take some of your waste, which we chopped off this little piece of marabou when we tied these in, you can actually thread that marabou feather right through the shank and clean out any glue that may have gotten stuck in there. That's a trick I picked up from some videos I was watching online. So now this thing's ready to roll. We'll come in with our second 12mm shank. Pop out the first one. When you take it off, you'll find that you've got this V, right, where that dubbing couldn't get around the vise. That's simple to fix. You literally just pull it into place with your fingers, and now you've got this nice 360-degree cone. So we'll set our second one in the vise, create a thread base, give it a trim. All right, so now we're actually going to start to use our prop material. All right, so here is that perch colored Natural Shade Tapered Brush. We're going to start on the narrow end, and we're actually going to chop, if I can find my bad scissors, we're actually going to chop about 1 inch of this off. We don't need that last inch. If you're tying a smaller fly, you would want it. We don't need it. So chopped off that last inch, pulled 1/4 inch of fiber off to get that core of this brush exposed. So it's just 2 little pieces of wire. Once that core is exposed, we're gonna set it on top of that shank and we're gonna wrap it in. I'm gonna wrap it forward. I'll bend that core back and double it over and wrap right back on top. That creates just a rock solid tie-in point. It's not gonna slip out. I don't always do that, but if it's convenient, you know, I've left myself enough core to do it. It's one of those, you know, why not sort of things. So we're not going to use a ton of this because we had no prop material in the back. We don't need a whole bunch on this first shank that we're using it. So really 2, maybe 3 wraps of it is all we need. That's all we need right there. Push those fibers back, catch it, preen everything rearward. One more time around, preen it all rearward. Take our scissors, chop it out, and then really connect it. So I am gonna pinch that core back again and wrap back on top of it. Super, super durable way to do it. Okay, so there's our prop material. Now we're gonna come in with our laser dub again, and just a little bit bigger chunk of laser dub. Still not a lot, but we'll stack it, hold it in the middle, fan those fibers out, throw it on there. Loose, loose, cinch it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I may do a double on this one just to make sure we're locked in place. Okay. And then we'll fan these out in the front. And this, you know, you just sort of have to tease them out. It's a little bit time consuming to use this laser dub. By the way, you don't even need to use this laser dub. Here is a game changer I tied with just the brush material. There's no veil of laser dub on there. I like to add it. I think it gives the fly a little bit extra bulk. And I like to mirror it. I like to play with the colors. But you certainly don't need to. Once you've got it spread out, fold her back. One really cool thing about this pattern is it's really forgiving. So what I just did is I just shoved this whole section back. I was crowding my eye a little bit on this shank, and if that happens, you can just shove the whole thing rearward. Okay, so we're gonna throw a knot on this. There we go. Pull that off. Take our material, our laser dub, pull it forward. Some's gonna come out just when you kind of pull it with your fingers. We'll take our brush to it as well. All right, so now we're gonna cut it just a little longer than the length we used on that rear section. The nice thing is, if you're sort of careful about it, if you err on the side of leaving it too long, you can always come back and try it again. So I was pretty cautious with that cut right there, knowing that if this happened, right, if this ended up being too long, kind of going over that back section, all I have to do is bring it back and cut it again. Cut it a little shorter. Okay, so you just sort of need to take your time with this in order to get the right length. That's not a bad length at all. I'm just gonna clean it up. I've got some fibers that aren't quite all moving the same direction. Okay. All right, throw it back. And there's our second section. Come in with a little bit of glue. Take your garbage feather. Slide it right through. You got no problems. Okay, now we're going to come in with a 15 millimeter shank. We're going to use this to connect these rear two sections to our first hook. All right, so throw that in, pull it off, just sort of play with that laser dub to make sure it's working all the way around. All right, we'll set that down and we'll come in with our first hook. This is an Arex Universal Curve size 2. Love the hook gap on it. And then we're going to use its big brother here, a size 1 up front. So same style of hook, just a little bit smaller in the back. Thread base first. Whoop. Sometimes this thread goes a little crazy. Thread base. Cut this off. Got a little extra fiber there. And I'm going to tie this thread down into the bend. We're gonna tie in a shank, and anytime you're tying a shank to a hook, you want to have thread between those two pieces of metal. So tie that in, and now all I'm gonna do is lay this next to it, and I'll show you this in a second. You don't need to trim or chop this shank. So if you look at these shanks, they've got eyes on them, right? The eye of the shank. A lot of times you have to cut that off because you get this unwieldy little piece of real estate here. In this fly, you don't have to. You can leave it right on there. We're gonna tie material right over the top of it, so it makes it very, very easy. I laid those two shanks right next to each other. So if this is the original hook, I should say hook. This is the hook, this is the shank. They are side by side. And I've got the eye of the shank protruding just out above the bend of that hook, so I have free movement on this back end. Done. The other nice thing about leaving this eye on is it is not going to pull through. It can't. It wouldn't anyway, even if you took it off, it probably wouldn't go anywhere, but it just physically can't. And then we threw super glue on top of it. It's rock solid. So now we're going to take this brush again, and we're going to expose the core, tie it in, and this time I didn't leave myself all that much of that core, so I'm not even going to double it over. I'm just going to let it ride. There was some super glue on that connection there. I'm not worried about it. It's not going to go anywhere. But I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to spiral wrap it forward. You don't need a ton of wraps here. You really don't. It's pretty dense material as it is. So I don't need to go in and make touching wraps here. I'm just going to spiral it forward. 3 or 4 wraps are probably all you're going to need. Okay. I'm leaving just a little space for me to throw that laser dub cap on here and tying it off. And we're still firmly in that yellow color. Very soon it's going to start to transition into more of an olive color, but right now it's still yellow. I'm going to fold that back in the front. Not even so much just to make it a solid tie down, but to get it out of the way. Those are sharp. Okay, so there's our prop for this third segment. Now we're going to come in with, and this is where you can match these colors perfectly, right? Yellow brush, yellow laser dub, olive, olive. I'm going to start this process of transitioning the colors a little bit quicker. So I have blended some olive and some yellow laser dub. Oops. Going to pinch it in the middle, spread these fibers out. And these are all stacked clumps, just like we did on the first one. Okay. Throw that on there, kind of get everything pulled back. And we'll go loose wrap, cinch it tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps around, locking that in place. If you don't lock it in place here, when you go to pull everything forward to trim it, you could pull it right off the hook or the shank. So you don't want that to happen. So now it's all pulled forward, it's tied in the middle, it's locked in place. I could walk away with those knots. This isn't going to go anywhere. Now I just need to tease these out and fold them all back so they're kind of just in unison. All right, we're just going to rip our thread through there as best we can. And I am crowding this eye a little bit, so again, just shove it all back. Not a problem. All right, easy, easy. Now, that's all sitting rearward. I'm going to throw a knot on here. 3, 4, 5. Pull it tight. Cut it. Pull all this dubbing forward. All right, now this one, we're getting a lot of material coming off. No big deal. So, just like before, we're going to cut this a little bit longer than the previous segment. That's pretty good right there. Okay, so we've got this nice sort of shingled effect happening. Now, I probably use a little too much laser dub here, right? This is a little bit fatter than what I'd like it to be. That's actually kind of an easy fix. So if you pull all that laser dub back forward, all right, spread it out, take your scissors and cut in the same direction as that dub, you can thin it out. You thin it out without destroying the length. Okay, so now we just thinned it substantially. You got laser dub flying everywhere. But now it will sit back in a, much more appropriate way. So now we get this nice sort of taper that we're building. All right, we're gonna jump right into our 20 millimeter shank. Pop that out, kind of throw that dubbing around on the bottom where you couldn't get it before. Tighten this back up. And we'll do it again. Thread base to start. Trim it out. Take that thread all the way back. With these shanks, you really gotta tightly close those gaps where they sit together in the back end. On some of these shanks, actually, while we're on that topic, on some of these shanks, the eye doesn't quite close. It leaves a little gap that can be sharp. So closing that up is also important. All right, so back to our brush, just exposing that core again. We're gonna tie it in just like before. Not gonna double it over here either. Work it forward. Now, as our fibers continue to get longer, because again, this is a tapered brush, so every time we pick it up to use it, the fiber is gonna be a little bit longer. So as that happens, we just need to be a little more cognizant of what the fibers are doing as we palmer it on so that they all lay rearward and we're not trapping too many as we wrap it. But we're gonna go ahead and spiral wrap this up the shank just like we have been. Again, being careful to push everything rearward. I'm gonna come in with my wire brush again here. All right, we'll throw another one on there. Okay, and if you see fibers getting trapped, just get them. You know, sometimes sometimes it's better, well, it's probably always better to just take your time, get it right. That's one of the biggest things I've come to realize in fly tying. You know, you can rush through things, and if you're really good, you know, the end result is just fine. If you're like me and you're just sort of average at best, taking your time helps ensure that the finished product is worth the investment of time and materials and, you know, brain power that you're putting into it. So I like to go slow and steady, and, you know, I want to be happy with my finished product. So there's our prop. Okay, and it's hard to maybe see on the camera, but we are getting into more of an olive tinge with this yellow. And we blended some of that last time to use it. We're going to lean into it even a little bit harder here with our laser dub. And this is just an all olive piece, or I should say it's mostly olive. There's, I guess, a little bit of that yellow blended in here, but it's for the most part, it's mostly olive. But we really want to kind of force that transition in color. So spread those fibers out, throw them on. And this whole process of tying a game changer with laser dub and the method that I'm using here is not my own. This is a technique that I found on a video, a Greg Senyo video from a few years back. So this is not my method of, you know, tying with laser dub veils on a game changer. I took this, I guess I just sort of had the sense to use it even if I didn't create it. So just like before, push them back, pull the thread through, tie your knot in front. All right, and we're getting into these sections that are gaining bulk, right? So our prop material, our brush is getting, the fibers are getting longer. The thickness of the laser dub chunks is growing. Everything's becoming bulkier. So making sure we don't trap fibers, making sure we, you know, pull out these extra pieces, making sure we take the brush to it. Attention to detail helps as you're trying to tame more and more and more material. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a trim. I think I was a little bit cautious with that one there. I think I might need to come back, yep, and hit it again just a little bit tighter. And I'm just trying to get all of these the same length as best I can. But again, taking the time to fix the mistakes now so that the end result is something that you're happy with. We'll come in and use a little super glue on that thread. Okay. Where's our trash feather? Pull that through there again. Take all the glue out of the middle. All right. Got laser dub all over the place here. It doesn't hurt either at any time. And you can do it, you know, with your finished flies, but just take that wire brush and light this thing up. If you feel like you have fibers that are coming off or things just aren't sitting quite right, take the brush to it. No reason not to. All right. Okay, we're getting close. We're gonna take our second 20 millimeter shank. Throw that on. Play with the dubbing. Okay, and we're gonna go through the same process. Trim it. Take our brush, which is now going to start its transition from olive, I guess I should say like a light olive, to a darker olive. And And our laser dub here is going to reflect that. And we're going to do the same thing. Again, making sure to close this gap in the front. All right, we're going to try to get these fibers all to cooperate for us. All right, they're going to sit back, hopefully, and we'll spiral this thing forward. Okay, need this. And after I do a couple more, I'm just going to use it again. These brushes are awesome for a lot of reasons, but one of them is how kind of supple and soft and user-friendly the core is on this. I've used some brushes where there's, I mean, they're using, it seems like 3 or 4 strands to braid them together to make that core. They don't bend. They're hard to cut. They're just thick. They're pretty unwieldy. And this is not like that. This is just 2 strands, 2 metal strands that make this brush. So it's pretty easy to work with, which I appreciate. The other thing, and that's, I'm using this brush for a game changer, is you don't have to trim your prop material, right? I added the step of throwing the laser dub on, so I have to trim my laser dub, but there's no need to trim this prop material. It is all the right size every single time, which is super valuable. I mean, if you look at this fly, it's not the most complex fly in the world, but it takes a little bit of time. And well, we can save ourselves a little bit of that time by using the right materials. And these brushes were developed for game changers. So that's pretty cool. And if they're out there and they're available, why not arm yourself with the best tools? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, get that sort of cleaned up so I can throw a knot in there. Using a whip finish tool would also be fine. You'd want the longer version so you can sort of bypass this big bulky section on the front. But being able to do it with your hands is kind of a nice little skill for tying this style of fly. All right, throw it all back. And all I'm doing now is sort of tying backwards onto that laser dub, sort of like doubling it over, right? Like we tied it in once, now we double it over, we're gonna tie on top of it again, just to really double down on the durability. Okay. Trim. Pull this all forward. The bigger your clumps of laser dub, the harder they are to work with. So the more of this is going to come out. I mean, look at all that's coming out. So the more important this wire brush becomes. Okay. So we're getting to the point where we don't need to cut a lot of this stuff off. Really just taking like the tips of this dub off. All right, and that's pretty good so far there. Okay, we got this nice taper that we're building. Throw a little glue on here. Take our feather. Okay. It's sticking to my fingers, so I know it's doing something. All right. Now, we're going to use a 12mm shank to connect this to our front hook, and I'll explain why. In a perfect world, I'd probably have a little bit longer shank just to provide me with a little more substance to lash this back end onto. But it's going to actually work out really well with how we're going to set this up. So this front hook is a size 1 Ahrex universal curve, and I'm sliding a 7/32 tungsten bead on there. All right, so we're adding a little bit of weight to the head here. It's going to help get this fly down. Some of these that I've tied are unweighted, so I'm going to throw these with a sink tip line, maybe a sink 3 or a sink 5. But if I want to fish my intermediate, which I typically will fish in the rivers, I'd like to have a little more weight to it, just to break that surface a little bit quicker. So we've got our bead. We're actually going to do this in a very similar way to how the Leggy Boy is tied. So that Mike Schultz pattern, epic pattern, uses a bead on a hook, not usually this hook, but a similar hook, another Ahrex. I think it's the Nordic Salt hook, where we're tying in this front bead and then sort of wrapping our head over it. That's what we're going to end up doing. But this bead is a slotted bead, which is important for the way that we're going to fix these things in place. So all I did was create a little bit of a thread dam behind our bead here, so it can't move rearward, and then in front of the bead, so it can't move forward. That's going to hold the bead right where we want it. Now we're going to take our rear section that we've been building and our little 12 mil shank. We're going to set it on the back of the fly. Oops, let me bring my thread back there. And what we're going to do, it's hard to see because it's on my side, but I'll spin it. We've got the notch or the slot of this bead. I'm going to spin that to me. And inside that notch, I'm going to put the eye of this shank. So it's like a perfect fit to set that right inside of there. And then I'm going to tie this in with the back of the shank protruding just above the bend in the hook. So now I have this nice free movement on the back, like what we're looking for. But we've also got that eye of the shank that we're not cutting out again. We're keeping it. It's sort of hidden inside this bead. That's why I chose a 12 millimeter bead, 12 millimeter shank. Otherwise, it would have gone a little bit longer. And if you forego the bead and you tie it weightless, then you don't really need to worry about it. A 15 millimeter, even probably a 17 millimeter shank would fit just fine. So, but for this one, this fits very nicely. It also provides a little bit of a landmark for as we wrap things forward, which I like. I kind of like to know, one of the big things in fly tying is getting your dimensions right, getting your ratios right. So putting the bead in a specific place then tells me where I need to wrap my prop material to, tells me where my laser dub needs to go, and then it just basically sets the foundation for the head so that all of these crustaceous heads end up the same size. So now we're going to move our thread to the rear. Oops, and we're going to tie in the rest of this brush, which has been eaten up almost completely at this point. So here we go. Tie it in. Not going to worry about doubling it over. All right. And then for this last stage, I'm going to use hackle pliers just so that I don't pull on these fibers that I might need. They might not get trapped in my grip as I palmer this. So it's getting pretty unruly here. So take a second, really squeeze, pinch those fibers, pull them back, and definitely going to need to hit it with the wire brush. For now, I'm going to get this thread out of the way up front and start to palmer. All right, I can already see a couple of them are getting trapped. I'll come back for them. Let me just get this one more down. 2, yeah, more of them are trapped. Pull some of this laser dub out of here. We don't need that. Okay. We'll come back for another one. Yes, sir, may I have another? Good. Let's go one more. This is going to be the biggest, bulkiest section of our fly. That hallmark teardrop shape is what, look at this laser dub, is what makes these flies swim so nicely. It's one of the things that makes these flies swim so nice. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and bring my thread back to where I want to tie it in. And I'm going to try to separate fibers here as much as I can. Pulling all the ones that are going to get chopped off, pull them back with that extra bit. There we go. That came out pretty good. 2, we'll go 3 times around, take our old scissors, cut that, fold her back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus some. All right, let's get that brush in here one more time. Okay. So you can see it's even a little bit darker up here than in some of these other sections. So we've got, what is this? It's called Sculpin Olive Laser Dub. So that you can see there's a big difference between the light olive and the Sculpin Olive. I think that's visible on there. And we're going to use the darker one. All right. And stack it up. Stack it up. Nice big clump. Grab it right in the middle. Spread it out. I mean, look at the size of this. It's, you know, markedly thicker than the clumps we were using at the beginning. Now we're going to shove this on there, but we got to go a little further and we got to go past this bead. So it takes a little bit of maneuvering, but again, taking your time will help immensely. Okay. Loose wrap, second loose wrap, cinch it tight. And I've cinched it right behind that bead. It's right up against that bead. That's what we want. Okay. We got a lot going on here. 2. Okay. Trying to get this extra bit out of the way. Lock it in. Good. Okay. Now we just fold it back. Gonna have to fold it back past the thread. No big deal. Easy. Okay. So there's our back end of this front section. I'm gonna go ahead and take the brush and hit it. We don't need to cut this one, so I don't need to fold everything forward and trim it. We're going to use all the length that this dubbing has. Whoops. So there's no need to fold it forward, but since we usually are brushing it at that step, we're just going to go ahead and do it now. Okay, so there's the whole body of the fly. Let me get my hair clip on there again. Now we're going to come in with our head material, and we're going to use this crustaceous brush, this EP crustaceous brush. It's pretty epic stuff. For a lot of the same reasons, the tapered brush is epic. It's easy to work with. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm noticing now in a lot of products on the market, is they're just becoming easier to work with. They're becoming more niche. They're becoming better for specific uses. Our distribution, so Renzetti, our distribution, is who distributes these brushes from Just Add H2O, along with a whole bunch of other product lines for the United States and Canada. And what I'm seeing in a lot of those products, and this EP crustaceous brush as well, is they're just easy. They're user-friendly. As flies become bigger and more complex, it's like the materials, they're not less complex, but they're easier to work with. They make the tying process more doable. So I'm gonna make 2 full wraps of this crustaceous brush behind that bead. And then I'm going to kind of jump that bead and tie it in front. So pinching it with my thumb and my pointer finger in the back, kind of holding it in place. I'm going to jump over that bead and tie it in front. All right, so I got 2 wraps in the back, one kind of spanning the gap or jumping that bead, and then we're going to make 3 or 4 wraps in front of the bead to give us this really nice, dense, water pushing head. And we're going to have to hit it with the brush every time. All right, and we'll try to sneak one more wrap on there. Yep, that worked out nicely. Okay. And then same thing, separate your fibers to tie this thing in. Preening, 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 right? Throw those fibers where you want them to go. Right, they're not going to do it themselves. You just got to take your time. All right, so there's 2 around. I'm going to take my thumbnail and pinch that core where I doubled it over. You can hear this thread clicking. I'm trying to wrap up on top of those 2 bits of wire where it's doubled over. Finally got it. All right, we're going to trim this close. Pull off our extra. And yes, these are little rubber legs that are sort of built into this crustaceous brush. Let's take our other hair clip, slide it on, and just get all that head out of the way. So now we can very easily put a nice double whip finish on here. Okay, pull that tight, trim it out. So, all done. No, not done. This is too much, right? There's a little too much happening here. So, we're gonna have to trim this thing up. And it's not hard. This is one of the reasons we like this EP crustaceous brush, is it's very user-friendly. But you've got this big, unwieldy mess up front that needs to be slimmed down quite a bit. One thing you can do, and we talked about ratios earlier and getting everything kind of proportional. If you can find your hook gap in the front, or I should say the bottom of your hook, the point of your hook in the front, you need to trim your material so that you create a hook gap. So as this sits right now, we have all this material sort of sitting right on top of that hook point. That's not going to help us catch fish. So the first thing I'm going to do after I brushed it out and sort of teased everything out is take my scissors and just give it a big chop. All right, right here at the bottom, creating a hook gap. Now I will do basically the same thing as I rotate this fly around, trying to make this symmetrical as best I can. All right, and then again, as you do it, just sort of cleaning it up. If I take my scissors and set them on the eye of the hook at about a 45-degree angle back, I can make more cuts and sort of create that nice tapered head. But now you can see that that hook is now visible again. Another thing with creating these heads is if you trim too much off, you can't get it back. Right? This is tied in. This is done. It is what it is. If you trim it too short or you screw it up, number one, it'll still fish. These game changers are so epically amazing because it almost seems like the imperfect ones sometimes swim a little bit different and catch fish maybe that wouldn't have eaten a typical one that has a nice rhythmic movement to it. So even the bad ones fish. So that's number one. But if you want it to look perfect and swim perfect, you have to err on the side of caution and not trim too much right off the bat until you get a nice look at it. You can also, by the way, always trim these things on the water if you need to. All I'm doing now is taking this brush to it to kind of sit everything back. So there's our fly. That's done. I'm gonna fish it like this most of the time. There is just a little more you can do if you really want to get a nice taper. And this is how Senyo does it. You basically just sort of fluff up all your laser dub and take your scissors, set them at the angle you want them to be at, and you just make cuts on that angle. This is totally an optional step. I don't usually do this, but figure we should show it for those who do want to. I'm not all that worried about having a perfect taper on here. It's already pretty well tapered because our prop material, our brush, had the taper built in, and we've been following that the entire time. So we'll take our brush one last go around, trim everything out of there. I'm gonna come in with some super glue on here at the end, or maybe some head cement, whatever your preference is. But that's it. That's the fly. A laser dub game changer tied with the R distribution Natural Shade Tapered Brush. It's an awesome pattern. Like I said, just about any warm water species is going to light this thing up. Not all that difficult. Very, very cool looking. Lots of color contrast. Give it a try, and I'll see you next time.